am Nannette Maciejunes, the Executive Director at the Columbus Museum of Art, and we are standing in the museum's installation of Botanical Wonders. It's, I think, 13 quilts from the Wasserstrom, Donna and Rodney Wasserstrom collection, and this is a new gift to the museum. We're thrilled, and I'm standing with Donna Wasserstrom, who we refer to as the quilt collector extraordinaire, because she is just very passionate about quilts. Now, one of the great reasons we were excited to acquire this collection was that the museum already has an incredibly important coverlet, American coverlet collection. Coverlets were all woven by men, and that's what I want to write. They're right around the Civil War. Right before the Civil War and through the Civil War. But the idea is that they were all done by male weavers. All of the quilts are done by women. But I think interesting that, our coverlet collection, you may not know, was collected by a woman collector. And then you were the real driving force on it.
Yes.
Rodney's there, but this is your passion.
Exactly.
Talk about why this is a passion for you. Why this work? Why these women that do this?
Well, first of all, I started collecting 19 years ago. My first quilt was because I went to an auction for him, and they had a back of the house. And there was a quilt that went up that I thought was so beautiful, and it was sold. So when the second quilt came up, I bought it. And in the car, my husband said, "Why'd you buy that quilt?" I said, "I don't know, it was beautiful." And he said, "That's okay, you weren't feeling well." Well, 6 months later, we went into an antique mall. We were on our way to a wedding, and I bought a second quilt. And we got in the car, and he looked at me and he said, "I don't think I like the direction this is going." And we ended up buying over 500 quilts, so that we gave the museum 400. Now, what's important to know about these quilts, and I was a textile artist and did a lot of sewing myself, is to remember that these women had to be mathematicians in order to get a design like this one so perfectly on the sheet they had to cover their bed. How do you imagine this design in perfect proportions and then a border that's equally perfect to go on that bed? And this was done without calculators, however they figured it out. And materials were expensive, so they couldn't make a lot of mistakes. But look at this glorious thing. It's absolutely magnificent. And then on the other hand, you have the quilts that were done with outstanding quilting, like you have over here.
Yeah, let's walk over here. This is the earliest one in the room, right?
Yes.
In the gallery.
It is.
I'll go over here. And this one's from around 1850.
Yes. And it shows stuffing. And the
Oh, my
stuff
God.
work,
Yes.
in the quilting, they have gone behind and put a little batting to raise the design. Now, what you have to remember is they did all this work after they were done with their daily chores, no washer and dryer, the children were put to bed, and then they got to sit down with the candlelight, because there was no gas light back then, and she got to do her quilt. Again, making this design work out perfectly and getting the quilting and stuff work done perfectly. It was quite a task for a woman back in 1850.
I love that image of you evoking someone at the end of the day, of a long work day. These were, long, particularly in the 19th century, all that, life work that goes in, And the other thing that I find interesting is human beings And actually, we didn't say we were going to talk about this, but human beings, it's interesting. These are practical objects. These are usable things they use for their own home or for gifts for other members of the family, weddings and anniversaries, like new homes. But
Off to war.
But this impulse that human beings have to take something that they need, which is a bed covering, but to make it beautiful, the aesthetic impulse, which is so human, that it's at the core of art, which is that aesthetic impulse. I think that strikes me every time I walk into this room.
And this one was obviously used. The others were not.
Because sometimes they become precious things in a family. You use them only on special occasions if they're really beautiful.
Right. Or if it was a gift and they thought it was so beautiful, they packed it away.
And actually I had this experience. My grandmother made me a quilt, and I was a very young bride, and I foolishly used it because I loved it, but I used it up. And now I wish, why didn't I just take it out on special occasions?
Exactly.
I would still have it. So some of these quilts are like that.
Exactly.
And the range in this room is 100 years, because this is 1850, and there's
1950, 1940, down there.
wow. That's just amazing.
And those down there are quilt kits.
Oh, let's go talk about quilt kits. That's an interesting idea. Lots of people know about it, but lots of people don't.
This was probably the most common. And
Okay.
this is called the Tree of Life.
From a kit?
From a kit. And there were many different Tree of Life kits, but they all ended up looking like this, pretty much. And you could buy them you bought them with the fabric. And generally, there would be dotted lines telling you exactly how to cut the fabric so that it fit into the dotted line. And then there would be dotted lines to show you where to do the quilting.
Oh.
Now, some of the quilts still have the dotted lines. I know the quilt in the other room does, but one good wash, and this looks like it's had a good wash, would take
that out.
Yeah.
So very different from their sister quilters of generations before, which had to do the design themselves.
Right.
This became a quicker,
Much
mid-20th
easier.
century.
And you would find these advertised in magazines, women's newsletters, and all you had to do was send in your money, and your quilt arrived. You just put in the work, and there it is.
Now, I was going to say that you do make that sound simple, but my mother used to do a lot of handwork, and I have to tell you, even for someone, I'm really bad at handwork, and she might even have a kit, but what she could do with that kit was extraordinary for someone like me who was not good at that. So
Right.
I think there's still a lot of personal
There is
creative
no doubt,
capacity here.
no doubt about it. If you had the ability, but you didn't know how to go about putting it together.
that design element, the overall
Exactly.
design.
And patterns were not out there. So you could open a book and see a pattern, such as that pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But it was only in a picture in a book. And then you'd have to figure out how to get it to the size you want. And it became much more complicated. Then you'd have to figure out what fabric and how to place it on the fabric. This made all of that much easier.
Do people still do this?
Yes.
Are there still quilt kits? I don't know.
I think there probably are.
I know there's still quilters.
Yes, I think there probably are somewhere, but I'm not really aware of them. I know that if you go to some of the quilt shops, they will help you make a quilt, a very simple block quilt, and then you can start on your own.
Now, there's something that you love to talk about that I absolutely love to hear you talk about, which is God's way, and there's a nice example of that in this room.
Yes. Sometimes you'll see a quilt and there's something wrong with it, pattern-wise. A block isn't the right color and it stands out. Something just is off. And in this particular quilt that's so perfect, why is the 5 reversed? And that's called a God's way. A God's way is taking what would otherwise be a perfect quilt and making it slightly imperfect with the thought that only God could make something perfect. And because she's not a God, she cannot make something so perfect.
Now, obviously, all quilters didn't believe this because there are perfect quilts. But
Right.
this was something that a significant number of women believe
Yes.
this, that you see it recur again and again in quilts.
And from different areas of the country.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
different time periods, because I've seen God's way all the way up into the 1920s. I haven't seen it on contemporary quilts, but I'm sure that there are many. I'm just not collecting
Right.
contemporary quilts.
Well, we have a special stop outside this gallery. We're going to end out there, so let's go out there.
Okay. On the way, I do want to point out a folk quilt.
Oh, let's stop here then. Yeah, let's stop.
And this is a crazy quilt, but it's very folky. And the animals are plush. They're a whole different fabric from the wool quilt.
Oh, look at this.
So you have butterflies
really
and a
fun.
kitty and cats and a chicken.
Oh, the cats are over here. This is very personal.
dog
This is a
and a
very
deer.
personal, quirky quilt,
Yes,
isn't it?
angels sing to thee thy rest. And I'm quite and there's the angels.
Oh, the heads of the angels. There they are. And this one has...
Angels is misspelled.
Angels is misspelled. It's ankles, isn't it?
I don't know if that's a God's way or
Or she just didn't know how to
unintentional,
spell angels.
But this is dated
Now,
1901.
Is that the quilter's name or the person who we think it might have been given a gift as a gift? So in coverlet, sometimes...
Most likely that's the maker.
Maker. In coverlets, you have it both ways. Sometimes you have the maker, but sometimes you have an inscription, a corner block that's about who it was given to.
Very often that is, but my guess is that's the maker.
Well, if I spent this much time on a quilt, I think I would want to put my own name on it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so our last stop is out in the hall.
Outside.
Corridor. We don't call it a hall. Corridor. So tell us about this one, Donna.
This is Tulip Garden, and it too was a kit, and it's from 1960. It's contemporary, and what I love most about this is that you've got these wonderful tulips, and you have to look, but there's the bulb to one of the tulips.
Oh, right
And
here.
I think that's a wonderful design thing. I have never seen another contemporary quilt quite this thoughtful as far as design. Whoever designed this and whoever was the manufacturer really thought it through.
You know, here's something I've never asked you. Do you, in the collection, are there quilts made clearly from the same kit, but by two different makers? Have you ever been able to do, like, two different quilters, but they use the base of the same kit? Did you do that in the collection?
You mean
So you knew they were using the same quilting kit, but of course
they were different
yeah,
makers?
Makers.
You know, what's interesting is I didn't collect the same pattern.
Ah,
So I wouldn't really know, although I think there may be duplicates downstairs, so we could take a look
We
at
could take a
that.
look.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Very good.
and we have
Because-
lots of questions as we go through this, learning more about these.
Yes, because there we would get the answer you're asking.
Well, come and see us at the Columbus Museum of Art. Botanical Wonders.